Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
There we go. All right. Dash, you can go back.
You're right
to
there, Randall.
Randall's in full.
Yeah. Hey.
You're looking quite dashing today, Randall. That was
Yeah. There we go. Dad jokes already. I'm supposed to be the one delivering the dad jokes. Since I qualify
I gotta beat
as
you to
a
the punch sometimes, man.
dad, granddad, and great granddad. Have all those levels covered now.
Yes, but do you have doggy dad? Because that's what I've got. I have no children whatsoever. I have dogs. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. A medical miracle.
Yeah.
Dear.
My partner and I joke that we make big, beautiful beagles together. That's
there we go. I see. I somehow sense this. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Oh well, it's another Wednesday, another Hump Day Q&A. Here we are.
I can't believe another Hump Days rolled around already. It is insane how fast time flies. I am still writing 2025 on documents. I made a comment to a friend of mine. We were talking about something's popped up in the headlines, quantum or whatever, and I almost said 2025 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but I said 2025, and he was like, "Dude, it's 2026," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we're a quarter of the way in. It's 2026."
Yes. So. Not a lot going on. Oh, we should probably introduce ourselves. That'd probably be a good idea.
Yeah, let's do the introductions.
What the hell? For the heck of it.
My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader and CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter and other places at Dev Angels London. Randall.
I am Randall Schwartz. I am a Flutter Google developer expert, which means that Google has vetted me as being someone responsible enough to have that title. But it basically means I spend a lot of my time answering questions on the socials like Discord and Stack Overflow and places like that. Yes, I do answer questions on Stack Overflow again. It somehow is starting to pick back up again, which is nice. The AI period kind of wiped it out for a while, and I'm rambling. And for this show, I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the live chat. If you put Q: in front of your statement, we will consider it a question for the panel. That's being us. And we'll take them in the order they're received. If you say the same question twice, you lose your earlier place in line. So don't do that. That's just annoying and a waste of your time. So that's about it. Danielle can't be with us today. John is going to be a little late, right? No, was John late?
I'm not sure if he's going to be here or not, but we'll find out.
But not here yet. And Matthew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Matthew Jones. I am a senior innovation engineer for a large financial institution where we innovatively make innovations innovatively. But that is not my main interest. I have a YouTube channel under the handle of Makerinator where I make all kinds of weird stuff out of Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and Flutter and all kinds of like electronic stuff and whatever. So I have also started live streaming. I've got a second channel now called Makerinator Uncut, where I am live streaming several times a week, and then I'm going to edit those live streams together and put them up into vlogs so that you can see what I'm up to. So that is me.
Nice.
I was going to say, you fall into the trap of what we have, which is it's easier just to live stream and don't worry about editing and like all that.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's it. Because here's the problem, Simon. Like my projects take so long. Like months and months and months. Like I've been working, I looked at my notes on my current project since October. Literally October of last year, and it's still not done yet, and it's got probably a few more weeks of work left into it. And so I'm noticing my subscriber count on the main channel is going down because people think the channel's dead. They're like, he hasn't posted anything, channel must be dead. And so I'm like, how do I like maintain my quality level that I want on the main channel while also consistently putting out content? And the answer is live streams. So that's what I'm doing.
I think there's also an aspect to that, which is So I was thinking about this the other day, actually. This is like I don't know how YouTube does its thing in the background, like works on its, subscriber playlist database stuff. But people just continue to subscribe. But you can't, do you remember there was like that, what do they call it? Like subscribe apocalypse or whatever it was, where where YouTube Pocket, I can't remember what it was called now, but basically where YouTube just doused the whole database and got rid of a bunch of old junk, right? And I feel like they changed their subscriber algorithm. They automatically unsubscribe people if they've not gone back to that channel for a long time, right? Which makes sense, right? Like, but of course, if someone's not promoting content all the time, then you might get automatically unsubscribed from their channel. So you may have. I feel like that's. Don't quote me on that. I don't know how it works, but that's the feeling I've kind of got because I've had the same thing. I'm like, I was subscribed to that channel. Why am I not subscribed to that channel anymore? Right? And I'm like, you know, there's obviously got they've obviously got like a finite data set that they can have, right? Like it's not infinite, right? And I think it makes sense from a development practical standpoint, right? But equally, yeah, not so good if you don't do that algorithm right. And I feel like they probably should. It's easier for them just to blanket say, oh, if this person hasn't gone to the channel within a certain period of time, not just do, oh, when was the last post made? How often does that person make posts? Oh, once every 6 months. Okay. Or once a year. I mean, it's still, I would like to go back once a year. Like, there's a guy I follow on YouTube called Ahoy. I don't know if you've heard of his channel.
I have not.
I guarantee you.
Just his son, Chips Ahoy. I've heard of him.
Hang on. I'll put a link for anyone that wants it in the chat. But he does videos about retro videos about gaming and like how graphics worked, how sound worked back in the day. It also talks about like different games and different weapons and all sorts of other fun things. I don't know, but he does this documentary flow where it's really well edited and put together, and the editing and production value is so high. Like this stuff could be on TV. You know what I mean? Like it's that good. But the problem is it's not that frequent, his content.
It can't be. It can't be. If you're
But
taking the time,
the link is Xbox Ahoy is his username on YouTube. He did the Secrets of Monkey Island. He's done one on Polybus, which you'd probably, if you have never heard of Polybus, that's a good one I recommend. That's a good one.
I think I might have watched this video, but
so this one is about the arcade system that was never supposed to exist, and it was meant to be made by the CIA, FBI, name your agency or whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Just to like maybe train people for like the army or whatever it was, or like to get, I don't know, whatever it is.
Last Starfighter theory.
Yeah, exactly. Last Starfighter theory, right?
Yeah.
But he's done like a bunch of stuff in there about so many cool things, and I'd highly recommend. Like, you just need to look through, and you'll find something that interests you. I'm sure. But anyway,
the Polybius.
We're not talking about other people's channels. We're here to about Flutter and Dart.
Flutter, yes.
So you had the news recently. They've put a code freeze on Material and Cupertino. For those that don't know. So this is about the fact that there's been a plan in the works from. So first of all, none of us work for Google or Flutter, right? So I want to put that out there now.
Would you work for Flutter?
There has been a plan in place for a while for basically we have this. This is actually the it's quite funny actually. This is the same problem that actually Android fell into, right? And let me explain what the problem is. The problem here is if you do, let's say you do stable releases once every 3 months, once every 6 months, and you've got like a UI toolkit, or maybe like in terms of Android, it's even more problematic, which was they would do release of the OS with all the widgets, all the UI widgets in. So if there's a bug or in a UI widget or a patch, they can't fix it until the next major release of the operating system or whatever, right?
Right.
They might have a few point releases, but it's not like it's such a big effort to release such a thing as an operating system. So large code base to test and to get out there and to process. Like you can't just, oh, I found this bug, I need to fix it, ship. This doesn't work. So what Android were falling behind back then when iOS, because iOS only had to manage they couldn't like do their whole test suite across all the different vendors and devices, right? Whereas iOS, they could just do it on theirs. Android was falling behind at that time, and what they had decided to do was to split off into the compact libraries, as we were called at the time, compatibility libraries, Android compatibility, now called Android X, which is the official name for essentially the externalization of components of the operating system so they can be independently released separate to the OS itself. That's just one of the main goals of it, but that was a big portion of what caused it to happen in the first place. Now, we've had the same thing happen now with Flutter and Dart, right? So this is where now we've got the Flutter Cupertino, libraries. They've got bugs. They need to be fixed. We want to accept patches. Like they're separate. Essentially, they're part of the Flutter framework, but they're also independent of their own right. And part of this is a big portion is like, what is a button? You click on it, it has states, it depresses, it does. I feel like there's a standard. What is a button is clearly definable, right? However, what is not clearly definable is what is a material button versus what is a Cupertino button, right? And that's so what they're doing right now is they're separating off those libraries, and then we're going to be getting a layer in there, which is a generalized, here is a widget layer that both those libraries use. So the main widget layer stays within the main Flutter repo and package, whereas the Cupertino and material stuff goes out in their own packages. This enables a couple of things. They can iterate on that, and they can release new versions and version it separate to the actual Flutter one. So we had this before where they released a new version of material, and we have like constructors now like material 2014 and material 2021 and whatever else in the code base, right? Yeah. Whereas and they need that for backwards compatibility, but you could just, if it's a separate package, I'm going to use the previous version. I'm going to stick with that, right? So there's a definite contract between that standard library that you have inside of Flutter and Dart versus an external UI toolkit, right? Like UI widgets, right? Like so there's consistency for compatibility there as well. So coming back, running this back again. So yeah, although one of the benefits of Flutter is that it ships within your app, right? So that if there are bugs or updates in Flutter, you just rebuild the latest version and you've got all those fixes. That was a huge benefit to Flutter in the early days. But again, are you shipping with a beta release of Flutter? Are you shipping with a dev release of Flutter? You're not doing that anymore, right? Like things are matured now. So you've got to wait to those stable releases, wait to those beta releases before you make your stuff compatible and release your app with those. So what we've been seeing is you get your major releases, you get those point patch releases. We've been seeing quite a few of those, right? So we get like a point, I think we're on 0.41 now or something, right? Of 3, I think version 3. Mark. I see Mark.
I saw that.
Dude, come on the show anytime. You're welcome.
Yep.
But I think the thing they'd say that is now it's independent. We can assume that not just the separations. So the reason why they're doing the code freeze is to separate these two the repos, right? And to make this change, because as we all know, when you've got a huge code base, to make huge changes, you need to code freeze. You can't have people try to put patches whilst it's a moving target, right? It's like trying to empty the boat as it fills up underneath you, right? Like you're always going to be sinking slowly, right? So I think like that kind of they can code freeze, they can get on with this separation. They did the same thing when they merged the engine repo into the main Flutter repo, right? There was a code freeze took place. They could do the huge swaths of change needed to do that. And then, it's unlocked for everyone else to contribute again. So right now, no accepting contributions, it's code freeze, but that will be unlocked once they're over this little hump in the road. So I just want to put that out there. So there's a big long explanation to that, but any comments from you guys? Sorry, I just kind of smashed it out.
No, I think we've all been in the situation where we've seen like someone who took the material design system and then created their entirely different design system on top of it. And like, honestly, probably shouldn't have started with material, but they did because that's been just like the default. So I think that this is really positive because you can get, if you are in a situation where you're building something that has, frankly, a custom design system or a design system that's not material, you have a basis to start with that's not material, so you don't have to bring along all of that crud. Like, I have seen some pretty, I don't want to say fantastic because that's sarcasm, but like some pretty crazy workarounds to make material stop being material. And I'm like, if we didn't if that wasn't the default base that everyone started with, we wouldn't have that. So that
Yeah,
gives us a better starting point.
I know that I've done this when I first started picking up Flutter. It's like, I'm going to use material app and use these. Oh, it's a button widget, flat button widget. It's not called material flat button. It's called flat button, right? So in your mind, that's what it is. But it uses material themes, uses the whole system. And I'm like, oh, why I want the padding like this? I want that there, and I have to fight between like shrink wrap, padding, visual density, whatever it is to make this thing act like I want it to act. And it's a nightmare, right? And that is one of those things where I think quite a lot of Flutter and Dart Flutter developers fall into, which is that kind of, I just need to make it work and do my thing. When actually, if you go look at what a button is, you can make a button really simply, like it is a few widgets wrapped. And I think this is the problem, that kind of thought pattern of where you come from another UI framework where it's just not based on composition. Like, the depth of the tree is not a big deal in Flutterland versus what it might be in other frameworks, right? So you kind of like this idea of having, I'm going to have like 15 different widgets all nested in all providing a different bit of functionality to make a button may sound like completely absurd to a lot of other developers. But actually in the Flutterland, no, that's a very reasonable thing to do, and it doesn't have a huge cost to it. Like you might perceive in your mind from looking at other UI kits, right? So
one of the problems I have with the current way the UI is done is that it's like, where do you put the word blue to have this button be blue? There's like probably 6 or 7 different slots now where you can change it to make it blue. And I'm worried that this separation of material and Cupertino into separate libraries is going to add one more layer of indirection, maybe 2. And
so
I
think
it's not that bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I hope it's not going to be that bad. But it's true. Like there isn't like a clear, like this whole naming conventions of how you do theming has changed over the years, right? And
there's like an elevated button theme, and then there's a separate button theme, and then there's the material theme, and then there's whatever you're inheriting.
Right? Yeah. It's not just that, but each of those have a different naming for various things, right? It is one of those things where I think they also say that when it comes down to it, when you talk about like theming your app, I mean, something like we should probably get Mike Rydstrom.
Oh, Rydstrom, yeah.
Who did the Flex color scheme package?
Yeah,
which is pretty much for everyone should try it out.
We
but
had
that
him on
solves
once,
sorry.
Yeah, we had him on once about 3
Oh, we
years
had him on
ago.
a couple of times in the past, yeah. But I mean, like we've been going like 6 years or something.
Things have changed.
I think I'd say that I'd give this advice to anyone. We got theme extensions for a reason, right?
Yes.
Use theme extensions. When you're trying to do your own set of widgets and your own themes and everything else, use the theme extensions. Just create your little model object with your variables, pop it in a theme extension, and now you can use that in your widgets to theme your app. And then you can have light and dark themes, and it just works. Like you don't have to like stress out about how to do all the communication, get it all working, right?
The one thing I do want to say, Randall, back on the where do I set this button as blue topic. I can't believe you're not aware of this. There is a named parameter called dabadiabadai, and if you just set that to true, it'll make anything you want blue. So just look for dabadiabadai true.
Oh, you went all the way there for that.
She said Eiffel 65. That would have been better.
Did.
I just went on a little
Eiffel
journey.
65 parameter. Yeah. My partner frequently tells me your jokes take 5 minutes to tell and they're never worth it, and we just did that.
Would like to just disclose, since I am in Portland, Oregon at the moment, which is my home. There's just been an earthquake just off the Oregon coast. We have an active underwater volcano there, 4.0 magnitude, which isn't too bad yet, but it's been shaken the last few weeks, so a little scary. Yeah, of course, worth it to you. Yes. Nice. If you want to paste code for us to discuss, do you have that just?
I do. Let me just. I'm just fiddling around with this. I'm just kind of curious about this.
Okay. Oh yeah, there's
do that now,
right there.
Yeah. So let me bring up this slide, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
First off, you can't paste URLs in general, but if you want to give us a code sample, go to just.new. You'll have to have a GitHub account and log in if you need to. Enter a description and a title in the part marked 2 there, and put a file name in with a .dart extension if it's Dart code, so that it highlights it properly. And then paste your code in or type it out. Change the gist to public. I don't think it defaults to public; it defaults to private. So be sure you do that. And take the hash, which is just the hex part of the URL, and paste it in the chat. We'll see that, and we can undo this on our end. But you can't just paste URLs in the chat. We don't let YouTube doesn't let you do that. So only we can paste the URLs in. So there you go.
Only we have the power.
We have authorization. Are you authorized? Yes, in fact we are. So any other thing that's new? They're doing the code freeze for the next release. They're getting ready to do another dot release, or another major release actually. What, in a few weeks? Something like
Code
that.
freeze, I think, relates mainly to the material and Cupertino changes, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, but they've got a more fixed schedule coming up for new releases throughout the year, which is sort of fun because it's a little more predictable. But one of them is freezing apparently really soon, so that they can do some of this work.
Do we know when? Do we have any idea of kind of when we're going to see the updates that allow over-the-air pushes of code updates?
It's on a roadmap. That's all you get.
Yes, it's on a roadmap.
I know. I didn't know if we had any better idea of where that was at, but okay.
Google cannot announce schedules because they're a publicly traded U.S. company. Yes,
They did announce though that that they have got the release schedule, right? So they know we get one every quarter. These are standard practices. Like this, there's a cadence to the releases. So that is actually public knowledge that's out there. They've uploaded that somewhere. I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, they'll tell you when, but they won't tell you what because they can't.
Which is fair. I mean, because like we know what this coding is like. Like who knows what's going to be ready.
Right. It should be. It should keep improving. Is all we know. All we know is it's going to keep improving.
That and support for Firebase are the two things I'm waiting for.
Changing.
Have you actually looked at the full changelog of and release notes of the latest Flutter release?
I do. I try to read them all.
I always look at paste them into Claude and tell it to summarize.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
The answer to everything is just take this wall of text and say summarize. That's right.
But I always see the maybe I'll share this. Hang on. Why not?
We do have a couple questions when you're ready to start questions.
Oh yeah, we'll jump into questions just a moment. Why? So you get your
Let me goof off first.
Yeah, so obviously you get your the changelog in the repo, right? So you get this kind of like what's happened recently. So these are the most recent ones that got released, I think yesterday. Day before yesterday?
A few days ago. Probably ripe for another one. They're usually on Wednesdays. So I'm watching.
I don't know what that was about. Visual issues with circles appearing jagged. I remember this one. So this one on small radii circles, you get like a jagged corners. And this is one of the artifacts that came in. We're going with impeller and doing some stenciling. And this one was like this one I was experiencing actually in a couple of apps that we released. We were getting ANRs being reported. I'm like, nothing's changed. What's caused this? And it turns out that apparently there was an ANR that can occur on Android devices running Android 16 March security update, right? So since then, we've been seeing, you might have been seeing some ANRs in your logs. This might be why. Get upgrade to the latest patch for this, and that'll be resolved. So this is the 45-degree angle circles. These two are similar ones. I don't know what this one's about though. This is it. Like, don't link me to an internal bug number. That's not helpful. have to look at like. So for anyone that doesn't know, okay, so this is bump the skier. So this is a skier bug, and they bumped the skier revision that's been used for the fallback. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the full release notes on the Flutter website actually walk you through and actually show you everything that's in each of the major releases. So you get to actually go through and see all of the little changes that have gone from all the various community members and everyone. And this is what you want to summarize, right, Randall?
Yeah. Well, that too. Yes, right. It's that.
This is what you call wall of text. But it does, honestly, all this stuff makes a difference, right? And I think that there's definitely not enough said about all the contributions that we get to Flutter and the fact that it's cross-platform. There's a lot of different fundamental kind of
and they say Flutter is dead.
That you need different platforms and areas to make something as complicated as a cross-platform UI framework, right? So
And they say Flutter is dead, but then you look at the changelog for Flutter on an hourly basis, and it's like, hey, we're getting commits from all over the world. Most of the commits these days are coming from outside. Google.
That whole phrase needs to die itself because it doesn't mean anything. It never has. It literally never has.
It'll die around when COBOL dies.
Right. I think that the people forget that a huge percentage of apps on both Android and iOS are actually released with with Flutter. Yeah. So
on April Fool's Day, I kind of want to see if I can get a bread pan with like the Flutter logo, and then make the headline "Flutter is bread" and put that out there.
I just thought that. Do you know what we should do? We should see if we can get like a metal the way that when people make coffee, they can do like the little things on top of the coffee, right? We should see if we get some like metal the Flutter F cards and metal sheets and as like a little maybe conference thing, to give away, so people can make toast with the toasted F, just the F is not toasted or something, or making a coffee and you get the F.
That's even better. Yes, so make Flutter toast, right? And it burns the Flutter logo into it. I love it. Oh my god. You know what? I could do that with my laser engraver, right? I could just put a piece of bread on my laser engraver and just put it on the lowest setting and lightly toast the Flutter logo.
Yeah, what have we done? A little dash in the corner. Yeah. All right. Should we see what questions do we have in the queue?
Well, there was this earlier one that you haven't mentioned your new digs yet. So
I was being very lazy and didn't put it up, so that's why we don't have a sign. It also it does kind of the reason we had it before is because it was just made a good thing, but at the moment because the window's there, it does kind of block out some of the light in the room, so it doesn't stay up all the time.
Simon, you're a developer.
I should get an F on the wall here.
You know what? There's a guy who I've seen who has a really cool wood F that he made with lights and colors and stuff like that. If we can find out who he was, maybe you could hit him up and.
Oh, I was thinking about. So I was talking to John about this. I think if we were to CAD up the pieces and make an actual, something that you can kind of clip together, it's use some of the common fastings that you get with products where you don't actually have to put any screws in or anything like that. So just clips together, stays together, plastic. Then we should be able to go off and actually get kits, laser cut and get a bunch of them made up, do a crowdfunding thing, and then if people want Flutter F for their wall, that lights up, there's no reason why we couldn't do a crowdfunded thing. Might be fun.
You know what I want? I want the Flutter F But also, I'm getting a interest in the Unreal Engine. So I'd like the Unreal U, and I'd like to put the signs beside each other. I think that would.
Oh no. And then Calvin Klein to the right of that.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, dear.
Maybe the KeyCAD logo on the end. Would be.
Right.
Wow, I feel
moving
like I
on.
just violated the
I
do's
have
and
another
don'ts.
question. I have another question. It'll save us. It'll save us. Here we go. Patrick asks, now will it start to be separate the two ecosystems between Cupertino material? How will this affect the theme? We don't know yet. Will the Cupertino theme get more options like the material theme one? I don't know.
Well, I think there's aspect to this. I don't think we're going to see any immediate changes to that because the whole idea needs to be back to bad one the same, right?
Right.
The aim is here is not to introduce more features, but to introduce more flexibility to the theming and widget system.
Yeah.
So by separating them off, they can be iterated on quick and released separate to Flutter. But then also they can the major Flutter repo can have a bunch of base widgets that everyone can do their own widgets off of, which, as we were just talking about, is one of the big problems that people have. So I think that the reason why you don't see as many differences in the Cupertino theme, I think, is one of the Cupertino like system itself being more restrictive in the way that it does its UIs, right? Like there's not an expectation that you can color, like make the state of hover different on this than the other. You know, like not as definitely not as much flexibility in from what my experience has been in terms of sort of iOS theming to the inbuilt widgets versus what you might have on some of the other systems. But I think that again, it kind of comes back to the original point, which was if you've got a request to have a widget, say a tab bar, and it has a different you have like an animating splash thing that goes behind each of the tabs. So as you select a different one, it animates over. Right. This is something that's very custom to what you want to do. You can build that widget, and I think the problem here is there's a bit of expectation lost, and maybe this is something that the DevRel team and GDEs can help with. But there is definitely a gap there in terms of how you go from just using the inbuilt widgets at your fingertips versus making custom UI components. And you think of a lot of custom components that people make that are out there are more about composition of the existing UI components into making layouts and structure changes, things like that, not actually making your own animated tab bar and other custom things like that. It's still mismatched there. Yeah. So maybe if you have any suggestions about some code you want to see or some sort of component or widget or something, then we're more than welcome to suggest that in the chat. Maybe we can do a little bit of that. Also, there is actually a package that was just released that I wanted to talk to people, show people, and talk about.
Cool.
I wonder actually if the author is watching. Let me.
Sometimes authors watch.
I just want to say I've been messing around with Nocturne and having a lot of fun with that. Nocturne is pretty dope. If you're not familiar, Nocturne is a Dart framework that lets you build terminal applications.
That's so good. By our good friend Norbert.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a chap on Milad. I'm going to butcher his name. Milad Akiri. I'm terrible with names. I do apologize. But he has built he's been posting on X for a while, and every time I see one of his posts, it just like it has a twinkle to it. So let me he's experienced Flutter and open source developer, and he's also the creator of AutoRoute and Injectable. These are maybe packages that you've used. But if I show you some of his work, I'm just gonna flip over to the screen share here. Here we go. Let's give it that. So he's been doing a bunch of these kind of like you might have seen some of these kind of cool animations. Like you see them in apps for all the time, right? These like
Ooh, pretty.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. And No, you can imagine like you come to that, right? But there's just a bunch of these kind of just these nice kind of animations that you want to see inside of apps, right? And it's not to say that it's easier. I mean, it's definitely easy compared to in Flutter compared to other platforms, right, to do this kind of stuff.
Right.
But it still requires quite a bit of knowledge of animation, how you work it on, everything else. So anyway, Milad's been working on this package for a while now, and I think it's really good. Like it's like you can just feel that kind of what you want from an app nowadays, right? That kind of really nice UI interaction, right? I can just sit here all day and just like go through what he's been posting, but this is like some of the work that he's been posting to show what he's been working on.
Nice.
That's a bit hard to see that one, but you can see that.
This is exceptionally cool. Holy.
Oh yeah. It's super cool stuff, right? Like. I mean, it's all
little things that take forever to code, but like.
I mean, I have to say,
polish an app experience.
I really want to say to people like this is the thing, that this is all possible in Flutter, but this is so super difficult in so many other languages and things, even with CSS and everything. Like this stuff's a nightmare, right? So he came out with a package, and the package is called Q. It just got released 1 hour ago, so I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm really interested in he's got a bunch of the examples we just saw.
Looks like my afternoon is shot.
Right. This is the type of thing that once I get a hold of it, I will abuse it, and like everything in the app will suddenly move and zoom around, and yeah, this is cool.
Well, that's actually a good point, because you have to be super careful, right? Not to alienate your users. So it's about
my grandfather. My grandpa always said anything worth doing is worth overdoing, Simon.
So I will say that you should go look up, if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Although it can look fun, if an animation gets in the way of the user using your app, that's annoying to the user. Right?
Yes.
And also, animations should have a reason for animating, so it directs the focus to a new place, for example. So it's like when you enter a screen, or like there's an example here, which was let me bring it up actually again. I think it was one when you go to the final tab somewhere. Yeah, here. For example, here you're going through, and then you're on the final tab, and it pops out and goes, "Let's go," on like there's a button on the final one, right? That draws the eye to that, right? It's a difference, and because the eye is drawn to this change, you've now given them like, oh, if that "Let's go" button was just consistent at the bottom, and then they pan through, it hasn't got any meaning anymore, right? It doesn't have the same meaning as, oh, you finished your thing, now let's move on forward. Let's go forward from here. So there's a whole theme, and there's the whole experience that people have around motion design. And I'll go read up on it. And if you're going to do this like yourself, if you haven't had someone design it for you that has experience, it might be worth reading up about it, knowing what you're doing before you do. Go ahead and do it, because again, too much can get in the way.
Jokes aside, legitimately, go ahead, Randall.
I was just going to say, you didn't quite follow the plan, Lucas. The Q needs to be in the front too.
Oh,
I had to get that in there. I had to get that in there. Yes.
This may surprise everyone on this call and in chat, but I have some issues up here. I know.
What?
And one of those things is that I am distracted really, really easily, and like the cognitive overhead of everything really like weighs on me. So like if you look at my desktop wallpaper, unless I'm on stream or recording something, it is straight black, right? And inside my device settings, if you go into accessibility, there's an option where you can like turn off unnecessary motion, and I 100% do that, because like it is like this thing that it fatigues my brain and it makes it harder for me to function, right? So I think that there is, to your point, Simon, there's value in being intentional with it as opposed to putting it everywhere. And that's like, I wanted to make sure that I balanced my joke with saying, like, I get it.
I mean, you imagine you go to screen, all this stuff flies around. You're like, what am I seeing here? Where's my focus? You know, like,
Yeah, there's the rewind problem. Something flew by that I didn't catch. Now, how do I get back to that? But for me, the biggest upset is unnecessary splash screens. When something animates just because it was kind of cool the first time, but the 72nd time I make that transition from page 7 to page 8 and it does that flowery thing, that's getting in my way. Yeah. So don't put it in core navigation. Keep that nice. Let's see. We got another question. Look at that.
And if you've got a lot, maybe consider having a toggle to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 stars. Oh yes. Oh yeah. We do have lots of questions.
The original toggles for animation that operating systems was for performance. Now we have toggles for animation to turn them off because this is getting away.
Yes, I forgot we got some questions from earlier too. So here's Solomon said, "Is there a way to tell apart app built in native code versus Flutter? There used to be. I don't know if it still works.
Not anymore. You can't do it anymore.
No,
doesn't work anymore.
One detector.
I'm pretty sure they fixed that a long time ago.
The 2-finger scroll.
So yeah. So one finger, like if you had a list, you scroll with one finger, it would have a certain amount of should we say velocity to the scrolling motion.
Well, it would follow your finger. It would literally follow your finger.
When you 2 fingers, that'd be twice the velocity. So as you move down, it would parallax. It would move twice as quick on that screen.
Yeah,
that was a bug that exists in Flutter. I'm pretty sure.
4 went 4 times as fast. It was really funny. It was like it would just race along. Yeah.
So I believe that was fixed a long time ago. But that was one of those little things.
Yeah.
There is actually there is a lovely app that you can install on Android called Flutter Shark.
Yeah.
And Flutter Shark will. Are you about to talk about this? I can leave it to you if you want to.
No, go for it. I had put it in chat already, but please go on.
Okay. So I didn't even see the chat. So, so Flutter Shark is an app that you can install, and basically what it does, and any app can do this. It just goes through, examines the with your permission, of course, examines the installed apps, looks to see if any of the apps include libflutter.so, which is the native library for Flutter, and knows, okay, these apps were made with Flutter. And then you can go look at the there's every app that's made in Flutter has a license file. It's called notices.gzip that's filed in with it. And that file contains the license information about all the packages that you include in your app. And with that, you can actually work out what packages we use to build the app. So it also gives you that information. So if you're kind of curious what an app is using, what packages and pub it's using, you can actually use Flutter Shark to find that out as well, which is quite nice.
I sometimes do it just because I'm curious. Like the Bamboo Handy app that for my 3D printer is written in Flutter. That's a fun one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Sometimes I do it just to see, like, oh, they're using Flutter. So
I actually haven't looked at mine for a while. Let's see if anything new.
And while you're doing that, I can go ahead to the next question. Yes. Patrick asks, how are the plans recording accessibility? How are the plans recording accessibility beyond screen reader, like high contrast mode on Android and full keyboard access on iOS?
I've not heard of any plans for this. I know there are plans for some of these things. But you have to remember, Patrick, that literally nothing. Okay, this is one of those things that's been around since literally day one of Flutter. So let me explain this, Patrick. Your app built with Flutter is built on top of those systems. Because it's built on top of iOS, anything you can do in an iOS app, you can do in Flutter. You have to wait for the Flutter team to do something special for you. No, you can just do it because it's just it's just an iOS app at that point, right? Same for Android. Oh, you want to do something special in Android that only Android has and Flutter doesn't have built-in support for it. Just write the code and link it up. And so there's a whole section on the Flutter website for communicating with native code and how you do that. I will find the page for you and post it in the chat. It's not called native code. You don't want to get confused with FFI. What is it called? Platform integration. Build, support. Writing platform specific code. That's the one. I'll pop this in the chat. And basically, it's all about. In fact, I could probably bring up on stream actually here.
Ooh,
Why
yeah.
not? Yeah, writing platform
Sure.
code. So this is actually, for those that don't know, this is platform channels. It's just one mechanism. FFI is the other, but this is the one I'd really recommend beginners to go with, at least to begin with. Pun not intended there. Anyway, yeah. So you have your host platforms, whatever the code is for that. This is the host code that's built that you can build. And when you build like something like this, you can just build your app. Your normal app can have method channels in it. Normal, doesn't matter what it is. Or you can build a separate Flutter plugin, which is a system where basically it's just this, but in a library. But the idea being that you create an instance of method channel, and inside the native code, they create the same a Flutter method channel or whatever with that same name. And whenever you call a method over here, automatically it serializes and routes it to the native platform for it to handle it. And so you can extend and do whatever you want. So, you know, in Dart, you pass over one of these types, you know, you get this in Kotlin and Java and whatever the language is that you're running to, right? So, and there's a little guide that walks you through how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. Once you get your head around it, it's really straightforward. It's just getting like the pieces of the puzzle in your mind together and working. This is taking you through like the whole thing about how to add like every platform, like Linux, Windows, Mac, you know, whatever, right? You certainly don't need all of that. Depends on what you're doing. But as I said, if you come back to the question that we're talking about, it was I've lost it.
It was specifically about accessibility.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got it up on the screen. Sorry. Yeah. So let's say you want to deal with high contrast. Well, you can detect if high contrast is turned on and choose to have your app react a certain way to when high contrast mode is turned on. Right. So.
Yep. We've got a few more questions in the queue. We're actually getting questions. Thank you, guys. Again, any question around Flutter and Dart, we can try to answer.
Or coding, or you know, yeah,
coding in general, whatever.
Just
in fact, this one is.
Answer. If we don't know the answer, we'll make something up. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Or you can wait for our third hour and it'll be answered there. Shriven says, in the Flutter production app, what architecture will be comparably good to go with? Whatever works, really. I have sort of a 5-layer system that I use, but people have, I mean, if you want to use MVVM because you're familiar with that, you can do that. I kind of fall towards a classic MVC style because I learned from Smalltalk back in 1981 how to do it that way. So I'm kind of stick with old school stuff.
I use a modified MVVM.
Yeah.
It's MVVM with a repository, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, my 5 layers are pretty easy to explain. It's the API, repositories. No, wait, there's something in the middle. DTOs. So API, DTOs, repositories, controllers, and views. And each layer can call to the right of that, but not the other way around. And they can call parallel.
I think there's a fallacy that most developers have. I think it's maybe out. I'm gonna say laziness, to be honest, and from my own experience. But
okay.
Like the notion that you have like a model object of data you get from a server, right? And that's the same model object that you use in your widget to present that to the user.
Yeah,
that is never the case. Like practically speaking, the way that you communicate with an API is going to be specific to that API. The way that you present to the user is going to be specific to the way you need to present it to the user. It's not, there's many reasons why those two are never going to be compatible with each other out of the box. It may be that when you first make an API specific for the app, it returns exactly what it needs for that screen. And eventually they're going to diverge because you need backwards compatibility and things change and they add a new section to the app and they need to use some of that API and that API to get a response to that thing. And yeah, it's just, you end up with like this whole code base of rat's nest of like things, requests that you're waiting for and how it all works, right? So yeah, always have a different model we call DTOs or data transfer objects. These are your Pojo, these are your sort of Dojo, is it a plain old Dart object? Podo,
yeah.
Podo objects.
Podo too. Photo tree.
And those are those are just the model objects for what you use for your API. And they may be generated by like Open API spec or something like that, right? And then you have your model that you're going to use to present something to a user inside your app. And then you're going to have probably some other view model / things that also bind things together. So I find myself maybe with like 3 sets of models when I'm doing something in a layered architecture. So you have your DTO transfer, you have your models, which is moving data around, like your local user model and things like that, managing the state of your application. And then you might have view models, which are maybe a combination of some of those models that you're using within your app to present something on the screen to the user. When it comes to architecture in general, I'd also say that there's a whole section on the Flutter website called Architecture Flutter Apps. I'll put the link in the chat. And this actually does go through some really good guides on architecture concepts, but it's all about a layered approach, right? This is just like the key thing here is if you had UI reaching straight out to the data layer and not going through the logic layer, then what you end up with is like this whole set of, think of it almost like all these nodes all connected by lines. Suddenly you've got lines going every which way, and because there's no separation of concern, right? And like this kind of separation of communication, what happens when you try and replace something, you've got to touch every other part of the app to like do that. It makes really brittle code. So there's a bug in one place, it affects complete weird other places of your application. So having these separate layers that you're working with and splitting off code, you can go look up solid principles, right? But that's the initials SOLID, which are I forget what they stand for. There's a whole set of principles, but they're just good programming practices, really, right? Which is basically have good separation, and you'll win all the time, right? Like you're not going to have this code that's super complicated. That's easy for things to work through, right?
And you can tell we don't religiously worship solid because we don't know what the letters mean. So, it's not as you kind of go through the curve where at the beginning you kind of do you don't know what to do, and in the middle you kind of follow all the rules because you have to, and then at the end you kind of do whatever you want to. It still works.
Yeah,
Yes.
There's always the arc that I've seen every developer go through, right? Which is like this kind of at the beginning you don't know what to do, so you're at this beginner stage. So you grab at lots of things, right? And then you kind of go through a middle stage of going, these are the ways that I know are going to work. So these are my ways of doing things, and you realize that doesn't fit with all cases.
Yep.
But now you've got that experience from both those two areas. Now you go into that kind of advanced expert language. Now you can pick and choose what you want to do and combine it together to make what you need for your specific circumstance.
You need to learn the rules so that you know when to break the rules.
Yes. So solid apparently stands for single responsibility, open/closed, list off substitution, interface segregation, and dependency inversion. There you go.
Nice.
So my general architecture that I use, I've got 4 layers. I've got an application layer, a domain layer, a data layer, and a presentation layer. So the data layer is my DTOs and my repositories. Repositories are as thin as they can possibly be. They're generally when I'm interacting with like another package or some external thing so that I can easily mock it out. And then a level up from that is the, we've got the domain layer. That's where I shove all my view models and things. Application layer is services. So this is code, business logic that's going to be shared across the application. And then in the presentation layer, I put widgets and controllers. Controllers are just all of the business logic that operates the widget because I don't want any of that specifically in. So if there's like a state for the widget, then I usually put like my signals inside the controller as opposed to, and then like it interacts directly. So controllers talk to services, services talk to repositories. I'm not religious about that, but it's like the general thing that I feel back.
I was gonna say it's very, very similar to what I do. Yeah. I just saw this came up in the conversation. So specifically speaking about this, accessibility has actually been improved in Flutter. There's a switch to turn it on to improve it on web. The experimental switch. I forget what it is. Go look it up. But it's specifically disabled because it does affect performance on depending on how you build your app. So you probably can get a really good accessibility experience on web, if you turn that flag on, your mileage may vary. They specifically turned it off right now because they're waiting for some changes to come in to land in like a stable Chrome, I think it was, for them to like enable it on by default. So there's some we're going to be seeing this improve over time, and I know that they are working towards it. So if you go, I don't really, I'm not going to go look it up right now. Version, but yeah, if you go looking for it, you'll find there's I think there's an experimental flag from everybody. It has been a while, and they can enable better accessibility on web. So there you go.
Okay, we got a few more questions. Yeah.
Again, the other one is I'd also recommend that you could also use Jasper, right? So
Yeah.
Jasper, because it uses the native. Again, I want to like reiterate this just because for those that haven't seen this, I'll be very brief on this. So Flutter itself renders everything you see on the screen, right? Like it renders all the pixels. This is a pro because it means it's going to be the same on all those devices. You can have stability in the way your product looks and feels and acts. However, on web doesn't work that way. Web's already a platform that does that, right? Web has already got its own sandboxed environment. So this means that when it comes to rendering web, you've got a mode which is here's a canvas, like I'm going to render all the pixels to it. And this means that any of the built-in support for accessibility and all the other things, well, they're not going to work just out of the box, right? They have to be built on top. And we found this like another well-known problem with, say, Flutter on web. And this is the difference between having a web app and having a website, right? So website is more your informative, like documentation kind of thing, right? Where web app it's literally an app on a website. You don't want full text search. You don't want all those things, right? But a common thing that you see on Flutter Web is control. If you want to know if a website's built with Flutter Web, I can tell you right now. A good example of that is Control F for find on page. Just doesn't work on Flutter Web because there's no text to search. There's no text components. That's why accessibility and the change for accessibility can improve that, because that can go through that system to find the text and to highlight the appropriate thing on the screen and so on. It is possible to do that yourself. Like, again, let's come back to that point I made earlier. You have full control over what runs on the platform. You can communicate everything in JavaScript when it comes to web. So you can do whatever you want. You want to make your site more accessible, make it more accessible. You want to make your site work with Control F, you make it work with Control F, right? Now, you're not restricted in any way. It's just it doesn't come out of the box. And I think as developers, we do find we're kind of a bit lazy on this front. Like there was a time before, not too long ago, in my lifetime and Randall's, where every bit of software that ran on a computer was the code that you wrote as a developer, right? You won't make an operating system as such. There was no operating system, right? Which meant that, when you run that code, yeah, you had to, it wasn't there. You had to make it. So, yeah, it was a bit we talked about last week when I talked about big in, like the conversion. I think again, it's this kind of thing. I think maybe it's something just that wasn't taught in computer science to people, but like, let's say you're converting between a number and a string of numbers, and a string back to list of numbers. People think it's like magically something that's inside the language or something that's like done for them, right? No, but it's like, no, it literally reads each character from the string and goes, is it between the 0 and 9? Yeah, okay, then that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 3, and adds them up into a number, and now you've got your big number. Like, it's that simple. Like, it's the way that you would code it yourself. That's the way it does it, because that's how it's coded, right? And I think, again, like, people just kind of think there's something magical in there when there isn't. Like, you can code it all yourself, right?
Yep.
Okay. Back on track.
All right. Next question. This is actually a good question. If Dart is single threaded, then how to isolate not jank the UI? Well, it's not the same thread.
Yeah. So specifically, isolate is an isolated thread of memory, right? So it's an isolated thread of execution. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. For those who don't know, thread is the name given to a series of executed steps that the processor does. A thread is nothing. Like, it doesn't actually, there's no magical thing called a thread. We just the terminology is it's the CPU running a series of instructions, right? That is a thread of execution, right? They're tied together like a thread, right? Now, if it's doing that whole thing on its own, you can't do anything else, right? So that's why you have games, and you might have seen they have multi-threaded games and single-threaded games and performance on CPUs. This is all about that notion, right? Now, right now, to see us right now on your computer is doing thousands of threads a second, like being operated on. And the way it does that is it switches the threads out. So it's doing a bit of one and it stops doing that, does a bit of another one, stops doing that one, it does a bit of another one. And each one of those threads of execution is each different process of your computer, right? So when you look at your activity monitor, you see your list of processes, they're going to have multiple threads in each one, and each one of those gets a little bit of time on the CPU per second to run, basically, right? And the idea there being that because your computer is so quick, it can do so many things that seem simultaneous, but they're not, right? They're doing a little bit of each one. That's called multi-threading, right? Now, just going over this kind of principle, I know you've probably heard me talk about it a million times, but for those that don't know, anyway, so that's what happens in one thread. Now, if you've got two CPU cores, now you have true parallel processing. This is different. This is now you've got two CPUs running two separate threads, both at the same time in parallel. Now, if you've got 4 cores, you've got a quad core. Now you've got 4 running at the same time in parallel. And this is the benefit of multi-threading. However, it comes at a cost, especially in software development. So now let me explain something else. Imagine you've got your mobile app. It's downloading, let's say, some content like an API JSON feed in one thread, and you've got your UI trying to use that in the other thread, and there's some catch in between. Now, the problem here is it may not have finished doing this before this needs to use it. Now, the time domain is a huge bit in multi-threading, because now you need to know, has one thing finished before another thing starts? And if it hasn't, you're trying to both use it at the same time, has one modified. Let's say you've got like a list you're looping over, and it's been modified by the downloading bit of your app as it needs more data from the service, adding stuff in there. Now, your screen, is that, where is it? Has it repeated the same item? Is it jumping around? Like, multi-threading is not the solution to all problems, right? So JavaScript does the same thing. What it does is cooperative multitasking, or also these have another name. They're called coroutines, or in Dart it's async await. In JavaScript it's async await. They're coroutines, and they're also called Go routines in Go, and they're called fibers in Windows. These are just basically think of them as lightweight threads. The idea is, remember, so if you in your Dart app, it's running some of your code, and when it gets to an await line, what it's actually doing is it starts another little coroutine for the next function it needs to run, and your previous one gets put in a wait state once the next one finishes. And when it finishes and returns, it can wake up that previous routine that was running and continue it. By having all these little by having all these little coroutines running, you get the same benefit of multi-threaded processing, but with a single thread, without the cost of multi-threaded synchronization. This is why async await is such a powerful thing. So it may be single-threaded, but you're not getting single-threaded performance per se. You're not getting the problems that single-threaded has. You still get your wait states, right? You still get your wait states, so things can wait for other stuff to finish before it continues, right? And that is the real benefit of how Dart does it. And this means that as a developer, you literally have to really think about rate conditions and all this stuff, right? Like, it's pretty much handled for you out of the bag. Any work that you have to wait and there's time domain is going to come with some problems, right? Now, taking a step back. So previously, and this is a key point, Sheree, I want to mention, like for you and for the others, Flutter was originally, you would have, we saw earlier the native host code, all that channel stuff. All that was running on one thread. That was given to us as an app running by the operating system. That's your main thread. Every app has one thread it gets from the operating system always. Now, you can ask for more and you can get more, but it always has at least one. That one has all your code running in it, right? Now, with the way Flutter works, because it sets up its own Dart environment, it creates a new thread for the Dart code to run on, right? and it would create another thread for the rendering to happen inside of Flutter, and another one for this, and another one for that. So it might have like 6 threads running inside your app, 5 going over here for all the Dart and Flutter stuff, and 1 main thread for all of your plugins and stuff to use. Now, the problem here was that if you wanted any sort of communication between the Dart land and the host land, it had to be asynchronous. So you have to wait for one thing to let the other thing do that. Now, a lot of worlds, that sounds like a good idea. A lot of worlds, it's not a good idea. So originally, it got them out the door with the existing Dart environment as it was, without modifications and blah, 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 and it worked. Then recently, what we've done, what Flutter and Dart has done, is they've taken the main thread of your Dart app, and that is now the same thread that your Android and Java and whatever code that runs by your operating system is running on. So they're now in line. This now means that the time that your CPU given from the CPU to run your app on by the operating system, that's shared now between the Dart code that's running in your Dart main thread and the same thread, which is the same thread of the CPU, and the native code that's running. This has an implication that you've now, previously, if you compiled with the version of the Dart engine that wasn't combined, you had more time from the CPU because it's a separate thread. Now you're sharing the thread with other code, you have less time. So your app may have suffered in performance, right? Now, that was always the case, that you could have just done too much on your Dart thread and you would have still got jank and performance problems, right? It's always about doing less to get, you obviously don't want to rebuild and you don't run any code that you don't need to run, right? Because it's waste of power, energy, CPU time, memory, the lot. It's just a complete waste, right? So as a developer, that's one of our jobs, right? We need to make sure that our code is performant and is not, crap. So coming after all that backstory, so come back to the question at hand. So Dart, if Dart is single threaded, then how running an isolate does not jank the UI, because it's a separate isolate is literally that. It's a separate piece of memory and a separate Dart thread running, and it is just separate CPU thread. So now, instead of sharing that time with that main thread, now you've got a completely separate thread that's running code. So now you can think of it, now you've doubled your performance, right, by doing that. Now, it also means that if we talk about that original coroutine model that we're talking about earlier of sharing that thread's time, previously what happened was, let me give you an example. You've got code that's using a HTTP library, it's downloading JSON from a server, very common thing to do with an app. And it has to parse that JSON and put it in model objects and show it to the user. It's a very common thing. What's going to happen in that original one is you request your app makes a user the HTTP library to make a request to a server. So it creates a socket connection. It sends the data out to the server. Now, all the time it's doing that bit of work, it's not rendering anything on the UI. It can't, because it has to. It's doing this communication with the server. However, the way it works, which is very clever, which is as you're doing little bits of that, you're doing async and await routines. They're coroutines. So now that time is shared. So you can actually do network operations and API calls all with one thread in Dart and pretty much not worry about it, right? It's only when you do something that takes longer than, say, 8 or 16 milliseconds between one coroutine that you're going to see big bits of jank, or the cumulative of all your coroutines running in one period, let's say one frame, takes longer than that. So they've got those two. They're the two conditions for jank. Now, a good example of that is when you download JSON from a server, and that JSON is, say, 1 megabyte or 5 megabytes in size or something. To pass 5 million bytes of data as JSON within 8 milliseconds, you're asking a lot. So I can guarantee it's not going to do it. I'll tell you right now, no matter how many gigahertz your thing is, right? It's just like there's just not, the numbers don't add up, right? Like, so you're going to see jank. Now, if you go look at the isolate examples on the Flutter website, you'll find that a good example that they have is passing JSON in a separate isolate. So when you have big blobs of JSON like that, you've got this big data, you do that in a separate isolate, it passes, it doesn't jank the UI because it's a separate thread, not running the UI. And once you've passed through JSON, you've done all that stuff, it gets handed back to the main isolate for it to display it. However, again, all that whole isolate communication stuff is still quite complicated. The key here is they've made it simpler. You just use isolate.run. If you're having problems with isolate.run, you're probably doing it wrong, right? We have got a lot of benefit. It automatically does all the passing data, message back and forth, and data back and forth, and all that kind of stuff for you. It's not until you're running really kind of low-level multi-threading stuff that you need to worry about how isolates work. Anyway, sorry, that was a long answer to that question, but
Yes.
guys, got anything to add to that? Sorry, or feedback you want to?
No, but that was a fantastic answer to that question.
I need all diagrams. I need all like pictures and stuff.
Yes, yeah, that would really needs a whiteboard. That really needs a whiteboard to really do correctly.
We need Simon to have like an AR view where he can like drag a processor around, and then there's like threads and
get your virtual whiteboard up. Yeah,
I'm giving a task to anyone out there. Go grab the subtitle comments that automatically generated or the audio, chuck into an AI and get it, make that little graphic, make that animation. There you go.
That would be fun.
Do that now, right?
Yeah, we can. We can definitely do that. In fact, we can have it step by step and all sorts of things. You throw it at Notebook LM and have it go crazy. Yeah. Let's go on to the next question here. Let's see. This was a two-parter. Lucas first asks, any tips, tricks on how to squeeze more performance from Dio on mobile? Profiled the app and found some calls taking a lot of time. And the follow-up is a bunch of requests take about 100 milliseconds for the connection established phase, which seems quite long. It's probably because doing forward, reverse, forward DNS.
Okay, so I can give you, so first of all, I'll give you some good feedback on this. Do you mind me jumping in here? Sorry, guys. I feel like I'm always the first one jumping in with big answers.
You have long, good answers. We just sit by and we get names and credits, and that's all we do is sit here. It's great.
I'll dive in here. So first of all, it's what we just said, like use isolates, right? That's a good thing. That means that your app's going to be benefiting that. However, what you're experiencing right now is common for most mobile apps, and most developers never experience it when building the app. Okay, so two things. When your app is running on a cell network or out there in the wild on random Wi-Fi networks, you will get crazy differences in network connection times. Crazy differences. If you're on like the edge of a cell tower signal, or you've got crappy signal in a tunnel, you're going to get so much packet loss. Your connections that were taking less than 1 millisecond to connect on your home network now take seconds to connect out there in the field. Now, not just that. Once you can go look up at TCP, but there's a certain amount of back and forth communication that has to take place with you and the server you're connecting to actually just establish a connection. And that's the bit you're experiencing probably right now. That is doubly so when it's SSL as well with encryption, which everything is now, right? So that overhead. So first of all, powering up the actual cell modem that's inside the phone. That takes some time. It does a connection. There's a portion there of time it takes up. Not so much crazy as it was previous generation of phones than it is now, but it's still a thing. There's a SYN app thing that happens with TCP. You go look at it, but basically it's, are you there? I am here. Thanks very much. I want to now communicate with you. Thanks very much. You can now communicate with me. It's kind of, there's a whole back and forth that takes place. Now, that only has to happen when you establish a connection. But once you've got a connection, you can communicate, and there's no latency problem. There's no extra delay, right? So a standard HTTP connection is established as that. Now, if you can have all your communication go over that same connection, then you don't have to, each time you make a new request, you don't have to wait for that again. Now, this is the difference between making a HTTP client for every single request that you're making, which I see people do, drives me nuts, or reusing an existing HTTP client that you already have. The HTTP library that's inside of Dart has connection reuse built in. It will reuse connections built in. Please establish one client and share it, right? So that's one thing. You'll notice there's also some additional things you can do, settings around that if you go look at the details. It does. So there's a certain amount of caching that can take place. SSL cryptographic stuff, not so much, right? Like it can change per request, right? Like it just doesn't work that way, right? It's specific. Your handshakings are obviously on purpose specific for each connection you make. There is, however, a difference. Now I'm going to explain this difference. This is the next benefit. So HTTP 1, which is the standard one that's still quite prevalent. I don't actually I haven't looked up the recent numbers on it, but it's one of the most popular ones still. You have HTTP 1/1.1. You put both into the same tag. 1.1 added you can send multiple requests on the same connection, but it had one fatal problem with it, which is not solvable in the original standard, which is called head of line blocking. This means that let's say let's talk about web page for a second, right? Because it's a simple one. It's same for apps, but let's talk about web page. You make a request for a web page. It has to download the HTML. Then it makes a request for each of the images on the page and the font, and it has to download those. Now, you can imagine that you've got one connection. It sends a request off, sends a request off, sends a request off. If the server took a long time to get that first image back, the app has to wait, the client has to wait on that first one to come back before it can get the next response, before it gets the next response, and so on. This is called a head of line blocking. It's a failure of HTTP 1.1. Now, HTTP 2 came out to resolve that. And what HTTP 2 does is it has one SSL HTTP connection, one cryptographic stuff, one everything else. This gets rid of all that overhead that you're talking about because you do it once. And then it does multiplex connections. So you can actually have multiple established requests and responses all happening at the same time, or little chunks over the same connection. And that is the huge benefit of HTTP 2. However, the server that you're communicating with has to support it. Now, if you've got your own API, great, you can just add that. If you're using all of the CDNs and like all the public, all support it, right? But it's a thing that it's still a thing that you have to do. You have to add that, right? Like it doesn't just come out of the box.
Can I call out the elephant in the room here? There's also a huge part of this that is out of your control. Like just straight up. There is a massive part of this that is out of your control. Case in point, I was working on an app once, and the connections kept timing out, and backend informed me that I needed to set a 2-minute timeout before airing because they expected requests to take up to 2 minutes to respond. And wow. I'm like, you have got to be nuts. This is not acceptable. And I took it all the way up the ladder. And the comment from the top is, if they say it takes 2 minutes, it takes 2 minutes, right? And so like everything that you're saying, Simon, all the stuff that has to happen on the network, all the stuff that if you're like on a cell connection, you're at the edge of the network, and the backend stuff, you can optimize DO all you want, but all this other stuff outside of your app is still going to potentially be problematic. If your backend team has database queries that are so inefficient that it takes 2 minutes to respond, you can't optimize your way out of that. Now you can cache the responses, which you should do. You should save those in state and not make requests unless you absolutely need to. That's something you can do. But if you're looking at the network requests themselves, like you are only as fast as what the backend is going to send back to you and what the network is going to send back to you.
I will also say in that regard, Matt, in your example there, the backend team should have a bloody cache in front of that, just so that they anyway. That's a whole thing, right?
Lucas continues.
I have a DO instance in a provider which reuses it, but still, like 30 to 40% of requests take this long initial time before going out. Okay, yeah, I was about to get to the next things, right? Yes, I mean, look, use DO native wrapper. You can use there's a package on pub called DHTTP. Hang on. RHTTP, like Rust HTTP library. But there's also Cronet HTTP. I'll bring this up on stream actually. Hang on.
Yeah, these are cool things.
So let's get rid of the question for a second. RHTTP is a library that supports all of those wonderful HTTP standards I was talking about, all the latest stuff, and all of these things are important. And here's the thing: compatible with DO, right? So you can use DO with this, and this is where I would go, right? This would be my first go-to in your scenario. Solving this. But I want to explain though that all of these things like have responsibility here. A good example of this, which we haven't gone to, is the DNS resolution. If your DNS is going to be slow, each time you have to make a request, you have to look up the DNS. If it's not cached responsibly, or the local network is who knows what, like that, again, like things that you need to think about that are just going to take time. Anyway, so there's this. There's also these two libraries. So that these are the official libraries. So there's CrowNet, which is the native client for Android. So this is a native HTTP client that supports. This is the Chromium one, right? Which is supports all the HTTP2 and HTTP3. The other supports things such as HTTP3. And again, this is like a swap out so that you can go, oh, use CrowNet when I'm on Android, and I'll get higher performance than using the iOS one. But again, it all depends on what you're doing. Like most of the time, you don't need to go this route. There's Cupertino one as well, which uses the iOS native features to do all the latest HTTP standards, right? And other things. But the nice thing is with RHB, you don't have to worry about that. It just works out of the box, and it's compatible with all of the 3 standard libraries. So, but here's some nice little diagrams for you there. I'll make them bigger. There you go. Look at that.
Dang.
Lower is better. Look at the difference. You talk about DO, what you've got right now. There you go, 2.7 seconds down to 1 second. DO, 10 megabyte, 100 download. 13 seconds on DO, 2 seconds with RHTTP. So yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So you name again, you know, this what you might be seeing right now is a failure in the way DO is coded, but it sounds to me like you're not, unless you're doing like a huge number of requests or something else, you get head of line blocking, you're getting other things that are affecting your use case. Then again, remember, if you use it, let me be clear, you're reusing that HTTP client in your app. If it had multiple requests going out on it previously that you no longer need, like, you know, went back and now using it for another request, it still has to wait for those responses to come in before you get a response for your original request, right? So I had to say that, you know, you have to think about what's the word? Sorry. You have to think about all those things that are, you know, out of your control, and what they might be doing. But yeah, I wouldn't think it's anything that you're doing per se. Reuse the HTTP client. This is what's expected. Make your requests. What was this been in the chat here? Sorry.
We've got some other questions. No, nothing else from Lucas, so we can stop that.
But since we're talking about this, like before we jump on to, we'll come back to some previous questions. But I just want to jump on this one here.
Yeah. I was thinking you would want to do that.
Have you ever implemented interceptors for the HTTP package? Not being able to clone / copy with a request makes it difficult. Yeah. So it's an interesting one, but there's a point to that, because the request itself, you close the request. This is kind of like the difference between how you feel what you're looking at acts and how the library actually acts. So this is about the HTTP standard and the way it works. So request is something that is not just like a model object that you're sending, right? It's not an API request, right? It is the protocol itself. So you're talking about like streaming data over connection, right? Like when you make a request as well as you make a response. So just being able to clone a request is not the same as, you know, necessarily the same thing, especially when it comes to streams of data. Like cloning a model and having a stream of data doesn't work, right? You have to read the entire stream, make a copy of it, and then put that onto a new like request object, right? And I think that it's just one of those natural complexities you're going to get around this. I do agree that it's not desirable, right? Like it's annoying, right? I'm just saying that there's actually, I think probably a better implementation of that we could go with overall. The there's other ways of like doing communication, and I would do interceptors at a higher level and leave HTTP as it is, right? Does that kind of make sense? Like hide the whole HTTP package underneath that and have your own thing on top. What I've always done, and it works fine. You don't have to worry about copy with or anything like that. Yeah, not really good answer. Sorry. What was the other? There's some other things. I not sure your comments here.
Sorry, what?
They made some comments around like wrapping Dart and Rust and Go libraries and things, and like
yeah, that was
why not?
a few slots.
This fascinates me, right? It's like if you've got a really well tested library of code, it all runs the same on the CPU, right? Like take advantage of it, right? It's well tested, it's well used. Take full advantage of that in your app. Why are we trying to? There's definitely a thing that programs go through, which is about rewriting the wheel, right? Like there's definitely, I know I've had that experience in my own past, going, oh, that's like really bad point. I want to make that better or redo it. Like there's so many. I kind of we would call it open source syndrome or something. Like every developer wants to they see a package, I can make that better, or they make like a completely new thing in a different way, different interface, right?
But or just by forking it, yes.
But out of that whole thing, we've had so many revolutions in the way that we do things in software, right? Like I'm not putting it down at all, but equally, like it all depends on what you're building. If I'm building a library, yes, right? Like I'm gonna revamp that. I'm gonna look at that. If I'm building an app, on the other hand, like this is an end user product, right? This is take full advantage of everything that's been out there that's been built for you, right? Like, why would I not do that? Like, less code I have to write, less code I have to test, more reliance I have on the fact that this works, right? That's well written code. But definitely, I have to say, yeah, as you said here, is even now easier with code assets. So, like the way that it works now with Flutter and stuff is way easier than it ever has before, and there's a reason for that because this is the direction that we should be going with. I think there's also an aspect here which I'd like to see where we're in a world where communicating with the native platforms is just you write it in Dart code, right? So rather than having to write rather than using Pigeon or any of this kind of stuff or FFI generation, like rather than doing any of this kind of stuff to give that in between, you're just typing out your Dart code and it magically just works in native, like works against those native libraries. And that's kind of the world that we're going towards, which I think bridges that gap and will bring Dart and Flutter forward to the next level it needs to be to make it truly multi-platform, right? Like it is a big difference. It's so understated, like you don't know. I can really see how much difference it's going to make from an ecosystem standpoint than a lot of other things. Like you talk about material and Kubernetes, great, but that kind of thing will make a huge difference. Sorry, just bumbling.
Yeah, you triggered earlier though something about using a library, like and people reinventing things. That's one of the reasons I really like Signals, is because it's a fairly thin library and it sits just barely above observable data as a concept and things like that. And it is something that I could do by hand, but rather than doing it by hand every time, just relying on the library, which has been tested and documented, saves me time because I'm slightly lazy in that respect. I don't do multiplication by repeated addition. So I'm not gonna sing. I want to have like one layer in there for my state management, and that's why I really like how thin Signals is, but how comprehensive it is as well at the same time.
Good programmers are lazy, straight up.
Yes.
Yeah. With good reason. They're lazy in the right way. Let me put it that way. Good programmers are lazy in the right way. But I will also say the other thing I love about Signals is like we're talking about well-tested code. There's also well-tested concepts, right? So Signals isn't original to Flutter. It came from other places, right?
Yeah.
And because those concepts are so well understood and well applied other places, if you have something that's using Signals and you're bringing someone who's new into Flutter, it's one less piece of mental overhead that they have to understand. They don't have to learn the block pattern. They don't have to understand the 10,000 different providers in Riverpod. It's not actually 10,000, but you get my point. Like,
it's real close.
If they already understand like the paradigms and the concepts around signals, and that's a proven architectural pattern, then it speeds up their ability to hop onto an existing Flutter project and move faster.
Right. And again, the interfaces that Signals provides is so thin that really, you know, you can go, if you're familiar with what the listable value stuff is, you know, then it's just one more formalization of that. It makes it much easier, except it's also composable, so it's even better for that. I've got some more questions here. Can we just continue on? This one's not really a question. A couple of these aren't really questions. People put Q colon just so we see them. Currently trying KMP, really like it. Only hot reload is missing. Can be solved by a paid plugin, Compose Hot Swan. You got to pay for hot reload. I don't think. Good thing I like Flutter. Yes, right. I can also be able to relate with Flutter, so that's good. And so that's not really a question. This isn't really a question either. But apparently the Indian tax website is using Flutter. Cool. All right. And now we have a real question, sort of, for the panel here. I feel like I'm using AI for every Flutter task, about 80%. Every or 80. I don't get that. That doesn't parse. Anyway, every Flutter task, whatever. What do you think about developing apps with AI? Oh, we've continually talk about this. We don't need to talk about it all again. You might want to check out our Flutter Community AI Circle show that's taping on Tuesdays, occasional Tuesdays. We're trying to get back to a regular plan, but we'll be taping a show next Tuesday, for example, right here on this very same channel.
Such
on this very YouTube channel.
Opinion.
Yes. Hang on. We have to do something here first of all. Hang on.
What do we have to do?
Told we need to do this. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes. Because right here.
Right. Yeah. No, but the point here is if you subscribe, you'll get those notifications about the AI show that happens on Tuesdays.
Yes.
Sorry, Matt.
Yes. Anyway,
okay. So I just had to go through a pull request of a God, how much do I say here? Someone who is a vibe coder. And I have such a nuanced opinion of AI because I do use it. Like I absolutely, I use it every day. I use it all the time. But the problem is, like, and we've said it 1,000 times over and over again, if you don't understand what you're doing, you make such a mess. It's like, it's a scalpel, right? You hand a scalpel to a surgeon, they can save your life, they can do incredible things. You hand a scalpel to me and ask me to do the same stuff, you're gonna die, right? It's the same thing. It is the same thing. Like, it is a tool, and the problem is that with vibe coding in particular, it's really easy to make something very fast that looks impressive. It's not going to scale. It's going to be a mess to maintain. It's going to be hot garbage. But in an hour, you can knock out something that looks beautiful and like, oh, I'm a god, right? And like, if you actually look at what it's doing, if you don't understand how to guide it properly, you just make such a mess. And it's, anyway.
It increases the velocity both in creating good code and in creating technical debt. So you have to be aware. Yeah, you got like that? Yes. Right.
You just nailed it. Yes. AI will absolutely increase your velocity. Is it good code or tech debt? You may do either one 10 times faster. 10x the tech debt, 10x the good code. Pick one. Yes.
It pushes down on your accelerator pedal. Make sure you're facing the right way on the highway.
Or, I mean, I will say that on the whole thing, every bit of code that comes out of it, you need to review. You need to understand. You need to make sure it's done right. It's not just a matter of to do it and then see what sticks, because that is, we can all do that. We can all hack something together really quickly. It doesn't mean it's good code, right?
I was able to do that before AI, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
I was able to write bad code very quickly before AI was around. I am an OG.
And you still write bad code very quickly.
We all do. It's the first skill you learn is how to write bad code.
It is. It is.
Yes, or how to mimic bad code that you see of others.
I was just trying to look it up, and I can't remember the name of it now. But there's actually a name for a new type of software developer. It's a developer that comes in to unpick vibe coded code and to rewrite it and review it and like kind of make it right. There's actually a
Maybe
I
role
saw
you're
a
now.
talking
meme,
about-
the
you're
vibe
talking
code
about my-
cleanup officer. Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
or
basically,
my job title at one of my long-term clients was technical debt collector.
Oh God. Oh God. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I invented that title for myself because they didn't really have a title for me as a
Yeah.
contractor. I was sort of a general mop-up guy, and I figured I'm a technical debt collector then.
this is gonna bug me now. I can't remember the name of it. It's on the tip of
Yeah.
my tongue. I can't remember it.
Deslopifier?
It was like
Yeah.
reviewer or like vibe code. It was like it wasn't even didn't have the word vibe. It was like AI generated code reviewer or something like that. Like it was like basically that was their job, like to
Yep.
on F things.
Yep.
Anyway,
Right.
let's move on.
You flagged a couple things that I didn't flag, but I'll go ahead and
Yeah,
show
yeah,
them here.
yeah.
Apparently, well.
So
Okay,
this is continuous the conversation we're having earlier, right?
yeah.
So
Before
Lucas said,
you can read it.
yeah, right before I asked the backend to optimize on their part, I want to make sure everything is optimized on my side. Yeah, and Lucas, I'd say do the oh crap, now I forgot what it's called. Who's the famous detective from history fiction?
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, what did it say? It's I'm not right. I need to have some dinner. Ah, blimey. I'm not on
Soon.
right now.
Soon.
Yeah,
Soon.
What I told him was like test those endpoints without your app.
Yeah, well, this was
response
yeah,
times.
this is what literally what I was about to say. I was
Use
going to say,
Postman.
yeah.
Postman.
What you want to do is refine your understanding about the problem. Like at the moment, like that it's like when you make a request between your app and a server somewhere on the internet. There's so many steps that go through. So you need to break down each one of the steps, find out how long each bit's taking, right, or what it's doing and how it's working. So I'm definitely not working all cylinders. Oh, come on, guys. I'm going to look at famous Sherlock Holmes. Famous Sherlock Holmes quote.
I wonder how many realty companies were called Sherlock Holmes.
There's that kind of when you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, right?
Yes.
And it's that kind of thing. What you need to do is eliminate all the possibilities and kind of narrow it down in scope, the problem down in scope. And the more you narrow down the problem scope, the more you can understand what the individual parts are and how they're working, and therefore where your problems might be. That's the same with any software development, right? Like understanding is the first piece. Right.
So if you're trying to troubleshoot this, like I said, first thing I would do, ping it with Postman, see the response time there versus your app. That tells you how much overhead your app is adding. If, in all likelihood, your app is adding a negligible amount of response, then have the backend team look at the backend logs to see how long it's taking them to process, right? Subtract what your app is adding, subtract what backend is adding, and what's left is what's in the middle.
You can also do some other things, right? You can look up how, like, you can make, if you've got an Android device, you can use ADB shell, get into the Android device or simulator, and make requests not using Flutter, like from that same device on the same network connection, for example. Make sure that your tests are running on the same Wi-Fi or cell type of connection. Blah blah blah. Like there's other ways that you can kind of like start working through where the problems might be. All right.
I think this tied in with our earlier conversation too, right? So
yeah. This was about the 30
the
30 HTTP one. So these classes actually represent the transport instances instead of their configurations. Yes, in a sense. They're not. It's not like widgets in the configuration supply something later. No, these are the instances of what actually is used, right?
Cool.
There is a wrapper around some of this stuff, and so the HTTP client library, and then the IO HTTP stuff is that what you just said. Then the HTTP package on top of the IO one is kind of a wrapper around that simplifies a lot of the stream processing that has to happen for HTTP to work. And then you have DO and things like that might be even on top of that, and they add another layer. I recommend people to try out all of the mechanisms just so you understand it all. And also, just something I didn't mention earlier, just so it just came to mind. We mentioned HB1 and 2. HB3 is basically HB2, but over UDP. And that has the ability to basically have the entire startup timepiece gone as well, because you don't need a TCP handshake to start a HB3 connection. Yeah, it's when you get that low down. It's that kind of. Would you remember that graphic of like whenever there's like an AWS outage? There's that famous
like the iceberg, and then there's like all these things that are sitting underneath of it, and then
there's one that was what's the comic? OKCD? No, it's not it.
XKCD.
XK. Oh my god. See, I'm not there. XKCD.
With Randall Monroe, 2 L's in there, Randall.
Here it is. All modern digital infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's like AWS, and it's like the little domino at the bottom.
Yeah,
of it.
that's it. Perfect.
This is the common graphic that's used. It's used in quite a few, like whenever there's an outage, right? But it's like basically everything's built on top of this one little thing that can go wrong. And when it goes wrong, it goes terribly wrong.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a bit like that, in all honesty. Like you've got all these fundamental packages that they have to be solid. They have to be very bug-free, to be well tested, because everything, so much of everything else is built on top, right? So you can't just change one little thing in a protocol at that low level and expect there not to be ramifications, right? So just saying that there's, as much as the HTTP standards are very similar and they move on for each other, they can have some big impact and benefits, right? So, all right. Was that the final question? Yeah.
There was the one suggestion to play with Q for a live coding example.
I'm wondering if we're not going to do live coding right
Oh,
now.
because you're hungry. Yeah, we can't.
I have to bail.
We can't go
in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll probably wrap up then.
So, it might be. I mean, if there's no more questions, we could start wrapping up, or we'll carry on asking questions for a little bit. I don't want to. We'd like. I don't want to go over the 2-hour limit. I really do have to have a shot ahead. So we're get 10 minutes.
Get your questions in immediately, then, so that we can decide whether to wrap or not.
Chat.
Oh,
I do have a question for the chat. What is something that that Flutter has allowed you to build that you're particularly proud of? Can be something big, can be something small. Like, is there something that you have built with Flutter that is something that you are like, absolutely, you're like, man, I'm really glad I built that and put it into the world. So I'm curious to see what your responses are. I'm sure we all have something. And Simon, my recommendation for you for dinner is Taco Bell. Always Taco Bell.
It's nice if you had Taco Bell.
You don't have Taco Bell in the UK?
We have like one in the entirety of London, I think.
How do you not have Taco Bell on every corner?
Because they just didn't put them out here. I have a quick look. I don't even know locations. How many locations do they have? Let's have a look.
They have Taco Bell in Mexico, which really just confuses the heck out of me.
They have a few more than I realized. Apparently, there's 5 in London. No, sorry. Going in. Okay, so they're using some Google Maps weird grouping thing. It's not 5. I don't know, but
Lucas says we don't have Taco Bell either. It's the biggest problem of our country.
Which country is that? We don't know your country, do we?
I tell you, you know Popeyes.
I'm familiar with Popeyes.
They opened up one of those, and I was like, wow, that's nice. Apparently, in the entirety of the UK, there's 116 Taco Bells. There is Taco Bell, but they're not like that frequently, around. If that makes sense. I think there's also quite recent a lot of these locations. It's not.
You're not near Liverpool, are you? I know haven't.
Nowhere near as like prevalent as other fast food chains like McDonald's and KFC and things like that. Right?
Lucas says he's from Czechia, and he says been traveling specifically for Taco Bell a couple of times.
There we go.
I will confirm Baja Blast is worth traveling for. 100%. I would drive half an hour for a Baja Blast.
Oh, wait, we have a question.
Are
Uh,
we being trolled?
that's the answer to that is start over.
Is there a way to compile Flutter code into React Native? Yeah, well, you can use Flutter in a React Native app if that's what you want to do. Yes, it's just a standard web embedder.
Oh, right.
it is-
Yeah, of course.
yeah. So yes, you can have a whole section of your app or page or widget or whatever built with Flutter, and it'll work in React Native. Yeah.
I was discussing yesterday on one of the socials somewhere about how, because we have, convert Dart to JS, that Dart already had the ability to be like Cloudflare functions and all sorts of functions that way. Oh, they were asking, is full stack makes sense still with Dart? Is anybody doing full stack? I think that was the source of the chat. And I was going, yeah, it's definitely viable. It's mature. You've got Shelf and you've got the, what is it, Relic, the new replacement that they did for ServerPod.
Dart Frog. There's tons of
And
them.
Dart Frog and stuff. Yeah. And the fact that you, again, like even 3 or 4 years ago, you could compile Dart into something that could be loaded into NPM. And in fact, SAS, the SAS standard tool, is written in Dart. Most people don't know this about SAS because they're big. It's sort of a part of the infrastructure if you're doing anything with these days with web. It's generating CSS structured wise, and that's the official version of that now is Dart. And so you're actually running a Dart app when you're running the SAS program. So cool stuff.
And that's just a web view.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Ah,
Indeed.
all right. I have.
Here's I'll put the official pack if you're interested. That's the official packages in the chat.
All right. Cool. Well, let's wrap it up. No questions.
Yeah, I've
Let's
got a work
wrap it up.
meeting I got to get to shortly, so I'm gonna hop off, guys.
All right.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Matt. And hope are you around next week?
Will I be around next
What's
week?
you?
I'm anticipating it. Yeah, I think the week that I won't be here is when the week I'm going to the wrestling show, and I think that is April 29th. So I should be around next week. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll see. I guess we'll wrap up here. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in how many hours, Randall?
166. Yes, 166 hours. Yep.
Okay, we'll see everyone. Same time, same place next week. Thanks.
See you next week, guys. Bye.